Daniel Whittington, Chancellor of Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. Today is Gifted Drams, which is where I take bottles that were sent to us specifically by people wanting for me to talk about them on this channel. And this is the avenue where we do that. And we call it sponsored content because this is what they wanted. And here we are doing it. I pull them at random and I review them blindly. So I don't have any research on these at all other than whatever they sent with the bottle and then whatever I Google. Fair? And what I pulled was, Bhakta. This one's gonna be fancy. So they sent this. I don't know if you know these guys, but they've been. My memory is that it's connected to the guy who was one of the originals in Whistle Pig. But man, don't hold me to that. And they've started this whole line of Armagnacs or cognac or brandies that are like really old. And then they're aging them in whiskey barrels or finishing them in whiskey barrels. And I know because I bought one of the really old ones for my friend's birthday. And we all drank it together at his house in California. And they reached out and asked if I would send this. This is distilled in Indiana, it says in the back. I don't know anything about this, other than that it was a bourbon distilled in 2014, Indiana, which I'm guessing means MGP, which is not surprising, and then finished in Armagnac casks. And man, they went all in on the bottle. They emailed and asked if I would do this. And I said, yes, it'll be on the Gifted Drams. So I've got no information right now. I may have to go check my email in a second and figure out what's happening. But first, I'm just going to try it. Just completely blind. And then, oh, hey, here we go. There's a little bit of info on the hang tag. 99% corn bourbon. I didn't know that they did a New Oak 99% corn at MGP. And then it spent 125 days in the French oak Armagnac barrels. 9 years old. Okay. I'm going to try not to read any of the... Man, they really went all in on fancy bottle design. And, I mean, they're definitely going for a specific... I have no idea what this costs. Specific price point and specific energy. Huh. 52.7. They left it at cask strength. That's really cool. At least we get... like a really weighty nose. I'm not getting the classic sort of like rye forward classic MGP 7521, obviously because there's no rye. It's probably 99 corn, 1 barley. But it's kind of nice that even though, assuming it is MGP, I'm not getting the standard, oh, well, smells like MGP notes. But I am getting a hard candy sweetness that's in the direction of a deep cherry. I'm not getting a lot of the corn, like dusty corn note that I would expect. No real heavy tannins. If I'm looking for Armagnac, I think I can pick it up a little bit in the nose, but it's so gentle that it feels like it could be psychosomatic. It would be nice to have a before and after and you'd be like, oh, there's the Armagnac. But right now, it's just a really gentle, nice bourbon nose that's a little more sweet than you would expect for a bourbon nose. And then I'm going to look at their notes on what they said was in here. Oh, hey, okay. There it is. Ooh, really corn dust dry on the palate. The finish is a lot more barrel than the nose even hints at. The nose doesn't actually even hint at it, but the palate starts with the beginnings of that candy blush, hard candy sweetness and cherry, and then it just goes like whoosh, wash into sort of a dry... Tannin is the wrong word. It's not oaky, but it is dry and dusty. If you really spread it around, the core note of sweetness does open a bit more, but it's just surrounded in this corn dust. I keep getting this visual of like, you know when you have those candies that are rolled in powdered sugar afterwards? And so it's like you get this candy, but then you get this coating, or like a sour candy where it's like sweet in the middle, but it has this sour coating. I'm getting this sort of like dense, dark kernel of sweetness, but completely rolled and coated in this dry, sort of slight tannin finish. They'd say nose grassy and herbaceous. I mean, I could see what you mean by that, but I think my brain is mentally comparing it to more standard MGPs, and it's not nearly as dry and herbaceous as a standard MGP mash bill. Toasted oak caramel. Palate, immediate spice with charred oak, maraschino, there's your cherry, and maple syrup. I think, yeah, I mean, it's way, the oak spice is way more dominant on the finish than it is in the middle. Yeah. Anyway, it's interesting. It's not nearly as gentle. I mean, I thought it would be a little lighter. I don't know that it is. I'm going to add a little bit of water, and then I'm going to go and look at the email that they sent and see if it adds any more context or information. I'm going to try to remember what is the story on this brand, because I sort of have this feeling that I've been like seeing versions of their story like show up in my sphere over and over and over. So I have this sort of like hazy idea of what's happening, but I don't know that it's real. So let's do... Okay, we're recording. So I got this email from Chris Pasha. He says, I hope you're doing well. It's Chris with Bhakta Spirits reaching out. The world's leading house of vintages for rare, deeply aged single-year spirits. Rum, vintage whiskey, vintage Armagnac. That's what I bought. I bought the Armagnac for my friend's birthday. Recently released a new one, 2014 Bourbon. Second ever bourbon vintage. 1 year's harvest. Wow. Okay. 9 years aging. 125. So we already know all of this. They used one of the barrels that had held their Armagnac, so that's kind of cool. It's one of their Armagnac barrels. And then they put the bourbon into that. More information about the bottle. He attached a sell sheet. I'm going to pull up the sales sheet. I didn't pull it up like a knucklehead. And I'm going to download it, and I'll send this in, and we can put it up on the screen. And all the sales sheet says is the same thing. The only information it adds is that it is MGP for sure. There were only 1,500 cases, which is not small for craft guys, but it's small for big, huge brands. Chris Pasha. And let's look up the story of Bhakta, because that's what I want to know about us. So, the Bhakta philosophy. I want to know okay, yes, I get you want to find rare stuff. Yeah, sure, exquisite in your purposes, but I want to know why. There we go. Raj Peter Bhakta. Hey, I was right. Founder of Whistle Pig and Bhakta. He sold a stake in Whistle Pig in 2019. Heads off to figure out a plan. Ends up getting into Armagnac. And yeah, so here's what I remember. That's really all the information that we're getting on this. The Bhakta single vintage Armagnac. I'm going to look at these because this is the one that I bought for my friend was one of these. No, it's not any of those. Anyway, so my memory, and I think that's all we're getting from this, so I'm just going to stop it. My memory was that and this is actually what, I can see how this would bother you, but this is what I liked about Raj. He took shockingly old Armagnac and then moved them into bourbon barrels. And a lot of people freaked out. Like, how dare you adulterate this massive age statement Armagnac? And all I could think was, yeah, right on. That's cool. And it's because, like, look, we've got Armagnac. And we've got a lot of people who take Armagnac very seriously and are doing really great things with it. I love the guts that it takes to take a risk with something that's 3 decades old, right? And be like, let's do this. Could ruin it forever. Who knows? But you know what? To do anything interesting, it requires that level of, there's a word that I'm looking for that's not like a disregard for tradition, but it is, and it's not irreverent, but it's another word. Mike, what's another word synonym for irreverent? Irreverent is the wrong word, but it's sort of just like, it's sort of the guts to say, I don't care how it's done. I'm going to try something totally new that by some could be viewed as a little bit disrespectful or sacrilegious even. And instead, you're just going to be like, nah, we're going to try something. And it's very cheeky. And I like that. And we did that all the time at Crowded Barrel. And that's what made for some really amazing, interesting products. And I'll tell you that the Armagnac I drank from Bhakta was amazing. And we poured it for 30 people at a birthday party. And I told the whole story of that bottle for a whole night. And everyone loved it. And it's been 2 years or a year. People are still talking about that. And so I get that some people could have issues with this. That's fine. It takes a certain kind of person to have that kind of moxie to just be like, screw it. I'm going to take really old Armagnac and put it in whiskey barrels, see what happens. It happens to be something that I kind of appreciate. And so this, I want it to be as dramatically interesting as that Armagnac that I tried that was finished. It's not. It's a very good bourbon. It's a very good Armagnac finished bourbon. It's not, holy crap, drop everything, right? Now, I will say I added a little water and the nose exploded out of this glass, and it is dramatically prettier with a little bit of water now. That it sort of released some of the hold that the ethanol had, and it just opened up the nose, and now fruit explosion. Armagnac is very distinct all of a sudden. The bourbon got more cherry and more sweet and less of the dryness. Palate still has the same exact presentation. Dense kernel of sweetness, coating of spice and dryness. I think I want it to be softer on the palate. I think that's why I can't wholeheartedly just be like, wow, that's amazing. I think I'm looking for that dense kernel of sweetness that I was getting on the nose to just roll across the palate and linger. And it's not. It's there, but what lingers is the dry spice for me. And so it sort of goes like, ooh, so close. But it's very good. And they're pricing it. I should probably have looked that up, while we were looking up things. Bhakta bourbon. Let's see. They're selling it for $150. I don't know, man. I get it, right? Like, it's 9 years old. You're going for the luxury market. But 9-year-old bourbon, I don't know. I think but everything's getting expensive these days, man. 150 is a stretch for me. I don't know that I would be willing to spend 150. I spent real money on that Armagnac I bought from them, and I don't regret it a bit. But spending 150 on this, I think I would be like, ooh, I'd pause a little before I would do that. As a gift for somebody that I just really wanted to impress with, who may or may not know a lot of whiskey, but they like bourbon, absolutely blow their mind. It looks beautiful, work of art. Open up the packaging, it's going to be awesome. But yeah, overall, appreciate them letting me try this, and thank you for hanging out. I'm really glad you're here. Cheers to you. Also, before I like and subscribe, I'm gonna just